Welcome
Okay.
to this video. This video is the first in a series of videos that looks at randonneuring in different parts of the world. Each of the people that I will interview in this series of videos are people that have participated in this year's 2023 Paris-Brest-Paris and give us their unique insights into riding the PBP itself and about some of the riding in their home country.
My name is Tom Jackson. I'm now 67 years old and I live about 30 miles southeast of London in the UK. I did my first PBP in 1991 and so 2023 was my 9th consecutive PBP. Whilst they've all been similar, each one is different. My first one in 1987, I met 2 or 3 guys who completed the 1987 PBP, and I just couldn't even comprehend riding that distance. At that stage, I'd done 1 or 2 200s and possibly a 400, but I certainly had done nowhere near that distance. I was riding with a couple of guys. They said, right, we're going to do it in 1991. I had no thought about it then. And 1991 came. I rode the qualifying events. There was no pre-qualification in those days. I thought, why not? Let's do it. I entered, and again, no internet, nothing was online in those days. We did it all through the Audax UK club in those days. We put the bikes on the car and we drove to Paris. I had no idea. It was just like going to another long ride. You know, I prepared myself. I prepared the bike. Off I went. We rode into the night. In those days, there was a mass start at 10 o'clock for the 90-hour group. You just queued up. They let you out in bunches of 200, 300, 400 riders. And in those days, the atmosphere was electric because you had thousands of people at the start. And then as you went along the route, you know, for the first 10, 20, 30 kilometers, there were hundreds and hundreds of people lining the route. That feeling, it's the only time that I've ever felt like a celebrity or felt like a professional rider. And of course, that is the PBP experience. And I just set off into the night. I somehow managed to ride and finish the event. My lasting experience was you soon forget the pain and you just remember all the spectators. And it was that what I remembered. And of course, the years passed and 1995 came along. I entered again. And that's what's happened consecutive times. Now, as I get older, I now think, let's see if we can do 5. Oh, right. Now I'm getting towards the top of the UK finishers. Although many of those guys are far better club cyclists than I am. The motivation now is to do 10 and become there's another guy who's a little bit younger than me, a very, very, very accomplished cyclist who's also on 9. So I'm hoping that I along with Richard, will be the first UK guy to do 10 PBPs. Really, I just sort of fell into it by accident. I haven't got a cycling background. You know, I've been riding my bike now for 30 odd years, but I didn't grow up as a cyclist. I wasn't a cyclist in my teens and in my 20s. I only rode my bike from my 30s. So you know, I've had to learn the hard way. The quickest times I've done 73 hours. This time I did it in 86 hours. On each occasion, I finished comfortably within the time limit. This time around, I was a little bit disappointed. But you know, I've completed everyone. I'm 67 now, so let's see, 35.
And your best PBP, 73 hours, was that your very first one?
I think I did 74 hours in 1995. In 2003, I did 73 hours. This time 86. Yeah, it's not particularly fast. I mean, there are other guys who much quicker than me. The 2007 is the one that people talk about. It rained. And it rained, and I'm not talking about it rained from literally from within half an hour of starting. It rained for 2 or 3 days continuously, and I was wet through. My feet were a mess, and I was cold. That was a difficult time, but each one is difficult in its own way.
What is it that keeps you motivated?
But my motivation now is to do it 10 times, because that will be an achievement. You know, like going out today and doing 100 kilometers today. It's far better to be fit and healthy than to sit on the sofa and be a couch potato. So the motivation is just to keep fit and to the camaraderie of others. I mean, I used to play rugby, a great team sport when I was younger. And it's hard to explain to my old rugby friends that cycling, although it's very, very individualistic, it's also a great team sport, and you can have great support from other riders, even if you don't really ride with them, even if you just meet them along the way. You know, how you're doing, you know, and there's great banter, and there's great, you know, it's great fun. It's good fun. Yeah. So my motivation now is to keep fit, to keep going, and of course is that number 10 is the other motivation.
Have you ever been in a situation where, you know, why am I doing this? I'm just going to quit. This is like ridiculous.
It wasn't on PBP. When I did LEL in 2017, the sleeping arrangements are very similar. And I was sleeping on a blow-up mattress, and the mattress wasn't quite inflated enough. When I got into the bed, there was a blanket, and I pulled the blanket over me, and the blanket was warm. And I thought, gosh, you know, someone else has been in this blanket. This is not very... But I was so tired, I couldn't care. And then I laid on this mattress, and as I tossed and turned, the mattress wasn't blown up enough, and my shoulders and back were rubbing on the floor. It was very, very uncomfortable. And I thought to myself, I'm never, ever, ever going to do one of these long rides again. But, you know, I set off the next morning, and within 10 or 15 minutes, I was thinking to myself, right, next time I do this, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it that way. You know, so having a positive attitude, you know, and maybe I'm just lucky, I don't know. So a lot of it's in the mind. If you've got the fitness, it's in the mind. You've got to keep going. Since then, I've done two PBPs and another LEL.
Tell me a bit more about what's randonneuring like in the UK.
The UK is a very established. You can do randonneuring events every weekend of the year, and sometimes you can do them during the week as well. That you can ride with others every weekend of the year. From the spring onwards, you have the longer events, you know, 300, 400, 600s, and now there are more and more, you know, 1,000 events, 1,200 events, and so there's events every weekend. So if you want to, you can ride every weekend. Where I live near London, there are rides in the southeast of England that I can do, and I can go up country. I can pick rides that are flatter. I can pick rides, you know, some people by design put on this monstrously hilly events, so I can choose or avoid those type of events. So that there are rides I can ride every weekend if I want. You know, I can enter on my own, but when I get there may be 2 or 3 people that I kind of know, and I kind of know well enough to sort of say hello to, and I might be able to tag on with them or whatever, you know. So you can ride every weekend. But LEL is once every 4 years. It's a huge event. LEL is a little bit different. It differs to PBP because the entry fee on LEL is quite high. Once you enter LEL, there's no additional cost. If you want to have a meal, that's included in the entry fee. If you sleep or you shower, that's included in the entry fee. Whereas on PBP, as you know yourself, when you get to a control, if you want a cup of coffee, then certainly you've got to pay for that. Or if you want to sleep on a mattress, you've got to pay for that. So it's a different way of doing things. I thought I wouldn't do it again, but I'm now thinking perhaps I will. I don't know yet.
How far back can you trace the roots of the Audax riding in the UK?
So there's a Canadian website that a guy has got all the results going back to the 1930s. So from that spreadsheet, I can see that the first Briton rode that in I think 1966. That certainly going back, but really the mass British participation didn't really start until the early 80s, and it's sort of leveled out now. So the British participation started in the 80s, the early 1980s. There were some guys who rode it in the 70s. I know a guy who rode it in the 70s, but really it started in the 80s.
Is randonneuring maintaining its popularity?
It's maintaining its popularity. It's still very much dare I say, it's an older male, white, sort of, that's the typical demographic, but that is changing. There are more and more women doing it. There are more and more younger people doing it. I don't know whether you've heard of the transcontinental race that they have in Europe. A bunch of people who have realized that randonneuring is a great way to train for the TCR. So you're getting more and more of these very fit younger men and women who are using randonneuring as a way to train for other types of event. There's a worry that young people generally are not partaking in sport of any kind. So there is that worry that as people like my age, as we get older, the randonneuring will die out. So there is this. Some organisers are very keen to attract young people, and some organisers are very, very successful at doing that. They have very good social media is associated with their events. What clubs that are near London, they attract. They're able to hook into this London site. I'm sure it happens elsewhere in the country, but they're able to hook into this London scene, and they do attract younger people. But there is talk of it. There is talk of it. Yeah.
Are there any specific factors that you think might limit participation in randonneuring?
There are a number of things that put people off of cycling. First of all, there's the traffic. Some would argue that in the media, there's this sort of anti-cycling. Cyclists are seen as lawbreakers and all the rest of it. The weather. I mean, I was out today. It was pretty unpleasant, but I was out. There was lots of other people out today. Buying a bike, you and I could spend $10,000 on a bicycle if we wanted to. But the bike I rode today, I bought off eBay. It cost me less than $400. Finance may be a thing, but it's probably a collection of things. But randonneuring, because it's non-competitive, maybe we don't attract the sort of person that would go off racing. Maybe we're attracting a different sort of person. I don't know. I've managed to get a few of my friends to come along into randonneuring riding. They're at the stage where they'll do 100k, they'll do 200k. They've done a couple of 300s, but the thought of doing anything longer, they don't want to do that. Whereas you and I know that if you can do 200, you can do 400, and if you can do 400, you can certainly do 600. It's just having that will to do it. Really, social media brings to the fore events like Paris-Brest and like LEL, and people watch those and they see them and they think, oh yeah, I'd kind of like to do that. The thing I've noticed is that some events that I've organised, when you sort of trawl through YouTube, guess what? You see that guys have ridden your events. They've taken small videos and they posted them on YouTube, and you think, well, yeah, people, young kids are going to watch that, and maybe they will come along. One of the things that perhaps I would say, others may totally disagree with me, is that if you look at some of the big manufacturers of bikes now, they're making gravel bikes, they're making endurance bikes. The cost of those bikes is huge, and they're very nice machines, and I'd like one myself. You can ride a bike on a fraction of the cost that's equally as comfortable, equally as reliable. So maybe that puts people off. I don't know.
How do you find time to do all this training? And
I'm retired now, and I have a very understanding wife and family.
Do any of your family members also ride with you?
My wife has ridden 100Ks. She has ridden 200Ks. She's of the opinion, 100Ks is probably enough. What do you want to do any more for? She's very, very supportive. On PBP, for example, she came along and met me along the way. So she's very, very supportive. I belong to Audax UK, which is a national club. Also, like today, I was riding an event with the Audax Club Mid-Essex, Audax Club, which is over in Essex. That's the club my local club I belong to. We also have something called the Cycling Touring Club, which historically is like the oldest cycling club in the UK. And I'm also a member of that. This year there was a dozen riders, possibly more. They weren't the biggest. There were other clubs that were bigger, but there was certainly a substantial number. Yeah.
Do you have a specific formula that you follow to actually prepare for PVP?
My aspiration is to do double SR series, to do 2 600s, 2 400s, 2 300s, and 2 200s. So that's my aim, is to do a double SR series. That's my goal. This year, I'd done 13,000 kilometers before I started PVP. One of the generic comments I would make about some of the YouTube bloggers who talk about PVP is that there's not enough emphasis on getting those miles in your leg. That's what you need.
I've began to appreciate just how much time the guys actually spend on the bike and preparing for it as well. It's a huge commitment. Do you do any 1200s in the year of PVP?
I tried to do 2 600s. I'm now thinking as many 300s as you can, because the 300 sort of takes you into the zone where if you start in the morning, you've got to ride into the night. Once you get above 200k, your backside starts to hurt and your arms and your neck hurt. So things start to hurt a little bit. If you can't get those big miles in, try and get as many 300s in as you can. When you do PvP, that's your goal is to try and do 300k's a day. And so that's what your aim is to do. Yeah.
Has your training preparation changed?
The high level overview is much the same. Because I'm older and because I've retired, this time, you know, I had more time. You know, I'm not going to work. That's the big difference. So I, you know, I could go out on a Monday. I could go out on a Tuesday, Wednesday, a Thursday, and a Friday if I wanted to. Whereas when I was working, you know, I was kind of going out after work or at the weekends. So it made it much easier because I've got more time. We have something called Ride Round the Year. This informal competition started where you have to ride a 200k of each month of the year. Well, it's not a recognised Randonneuring award, but it's like an unofficial award myself and others do. Yes, people train indoors, but if you're hardy and or foolish enough, you certainly can ride there. You can ride all the year round because we don't have, unlike yourselves, we don't have ice and snow, you know, from December through to March or whatever. You know, I haven't got the confidence, probably the ability to go for an 80-hour start. I've always gone for the 90-hour start. The 84-hour start, which is the 5 o'clock in the morning start, that doesn't appeal to me because I think to myself, you spend 4 years getting yourself ready for it. Why put yourself under that extra pressure? Of course, there are guys who physically are more than capable, got the confidence and the ability to do it in less than 80 hours. But myself, I always choose 90 hours.
Most of our 1200s, either in Canada and in the US, start at 4 in the morning on day one. Yeah. Is it not possible that the PvP might be able to arrange a 90-hour start group in the early hours of the morning?
Who knows what PvP will do? And my view is there is the tradition. By nature, I would be against people saying, well, this is crazy. Why don't we, you know, why did you start at 10 o'clock at night? You know, surely we should start at 4 o'clock in the morning. I kind of think, well, this traditionally, this is the way it's been. So that's the way it should be. That's my view.
I'm just going to interrupt this interview for just a few minutes. And I would just want to say thanks so much to Tom for sharing his insights and his experience with us about Randonneuring in both the UK and about his PvP. And if you would like to hear more about Tom's experience at the PvP, please join us in our next video, which is going to come out next week, where he's going to discuss in much more detail about riding the Paris-Brest-Paris itself and giving us much more insight into his fueling, his bicycle, his sleeping strategy, and many more other aspects. So please don't forget to join us next week. Remember, if you've liked this video, please press that like button. And if you want to see more of this type of video, please subscribe to this channel. Until the next time I see you, stay safe, ride safe.